You're listening to the Big Cast, your source for the latest in financial technology. Brought to you weekly by the Best Innovation Group, with your hosts, John Best and Glenn Sarvati.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another edition of the Big Cast. And this is a very special edition back with my friends. I have Glenn Sarvati with me, I have Ann Legg, and I have John Janklius. And this is the edition where we go through and we talk about what's going to happen. And always, I am put on the spot for Bitcoin. And if I'm wrong, I am mercilessly made fun of. And if I'm right, no one cares. Apparently, that's how this
we
works.
just delete the episode in December if you're right.
Yeah, as soon as I'm right, they just ignore it, even though for I think the last 3 years I've been dead on. Anyways, I digress. Welcome all of our listeners to yet another delicious year. Is that a good way to put it? Probably delicious, because I just discovered that like not far from me is a place called Crumble. Have you guys been to one of these? And check it out. What's cool about Crumble, I just discovered, I thought they were going to be these big cookies, but you can get a mini and it's like this big. So yeah, I just got some of those. So it's going to be a delicious year. That's what I'm predicting. I'm predicting deliciousness in 2025. However,
25.
But this is going to be an exciting year. I mean, there's a lot going on. But before we get into it, I just want to throw something at you guys. I was just having a discussion with another credit union CTO, and we were talking about all the big gains that have happened in the last year and how everything just seems to be going incrementally faster. We saw Google solve a very important problem with quantum, which there's craziness afoot there that I don't even want to get into, but it's going to be an episode in and of itself with Glenn and I, because I'm going to get Roger back on to discuss what that is.
Wonderful.
But that's coming up. But we saw big pushes in the medical area. We saw all kinds of stuff. So I wanted to get you guys' perspective, because this is going to color my 2025 predictions. Do you believe that AI as a platform has lifted the entire, I'll say, workforce, human race, people who have access to it, and that things are going faster as a result of that? And have you seen that or any evidence of that in your own world? I know I have, but I'm just curious. And John, I'd love to start with you, given your position is in Nimbus.
Yeah. John, I am, is stupefied a word to add as an ingredient to our cooking show here? Let's see what's cooking. No, but as it relates to this, I am amazed at how fast adoption is happening. And you can read where, did I use AI to improve my work, my output of work? And, a year ago it was like 30%, this year it's 60%. That's a huge gain.
That's a big jump.
In the work world, and it's amazing. Like I'll write something and I'll run it through ChatGPT and it'll come out, and it's like there's 3 different versions that are just beautiful.
Yeah, all 3 are great.
They're all great. Yeah. What flavor do you
It's
want?
hard to decide. Is your work team using this sort of stuff as well? Do you know?
John, I don't know if our work team is using, but I would not be surprised, because they're using a lot of really cutting edge techniques. Heck, we have to, right?
Yeah.
And in order to get our production up, and
it's table stakes at this point, right?
Yeah, get our quality up 100%. Yep.
Yeah. How about you, Ann? What have you seen?
Yeah, no, 100%. What I'm seeing that's interesting from the credit union perspective is starting off with AI policy. That has been a hot topic of AI policy, which is kind of neat, because when you think about it, that's really taking your existing policies, your data governance, your data, your privacy, and it's kind of putting a big old wrapper around it. So that's been exciting. But also when we think about some of the small steps, I'm seeing a lot of credit unions really jump into chatbots. That, I would say, that has been the area that I've seen the most activity in. I still see, I think one of my favorite ones I saw was a credit union where they literally have started to make sure that their board report, their monthly board report, gets generated.
I've heard of 5300s are starting to be something they can use. What about marketing? And, given your position, I would imagine marketing, as John just pointed out.
Yeah, it's interesting because you get 2 minds. I've heard 2 very distinct voices in using ChatGPT in the creative realm. Mind 1 is the one where, oh my gosh, it's coming from my job. Very vocal. It's interesting to hear that. But mind 2 is, oh my gosh, my reach and my productivity with less headcount is amazing. So it's this really interesting push-pull that I've been hearing from, the marketing discipline. I think those who are concerned about jobs may not have necessarily been jumping into it and learning how to use it. Those who realize, hey, the budget's been decreasing and I've got to get more, have really enjoyed it and have been able to truly ramp up and get to that one-to-one communication, which is what I think a lot of the credit union marketing, function and aspiration is to make it feel like you're the only one.
Would you say that it's been from a marketing standpoint, and John, I throw this out to you and Glenn as well, but like it's leveling the playing field. If you're a two-man marketing show, you can be as good as any large marketing department, because it was always, I always thought content was good from those folks. It was a matter of number of hours in a day. Would you say that's been an equalizer, you think, from, because I'm seeing like a lot of really incredible, like where was I just recently? I was in Colorado Springs and I noticed Blue is creating, they're now in the Springs, and they really did some nice marketing around it. Now, I'm not saying they used AI, I don't know, but I'm just seeing what looks to me like a level up across the board.
Look at LinkedIn. Before it was maybe a thought or an idea. Look at the articles, the newsletters that are dense. There's a lot of content in those.
Yeah, you need AI to read the AI.
Yeah.
And that, by the way, that's funny, but not really, because it points out what kind of table stakes it's going to be. Well, let's get to the man who hates AI, finds it all just terrible, and would prefer it never existed, and really just wants to live in his shack and type up his manifesto. Let's ask Glenn what he thinks.
You're half right there, because I was going to say, as usual, a contrarian view. And
I was expecting something, yeah.
And you used the phrase push and pull on that one, and that's kind of where I'm going on this. And this kind of maybe becomes the first prediction that we have for the episode. I agree with everything that's been said about the growth and the speed of the fact that it is speeding things up and the positive usages. I also suspect, this is my prediction, that we're going to hit in certain ways that, as they call it, the trough of disillusionment in the Gartner Group kind of hype cycle, because there's so much pushback in so many areas about how this stuff is dangerous and scary, et cetera, et cetera. And some of it, I think, winds up turning into a reframing, because I remember I started hearing that already at Finovate this last year. It's like, we've been doing this AI stuff for years, guys. This isn't brand new. We've just got a new name around it. So it's like, it almost reminds me of the, I hate Congress, but I love my congressman. We're going to find ways to use this stuff effectively while we're still afraid of the big picture of what's kind of being sold as this kind of dystopian vision. So I expect to hear more pushback in certain areas and ways to try to prevent the catastrophic dystopian future, at the same time that we keep seeing more on the ground that's done kind of quietly that people don't even realize would fall into the category of AI.
So, and I'm going to go around the horn, but this is such a good lead in for my first prediction that I'm just going to go ahead and take the moment, which is, so long time ago, and you guys may remember this, there was a virus called Slammer. Anybody remember Slammer? What Slammer did was, it was a database virus, and it was out to find anybody that was running this version of SQL. And it was the first, wasn't the first, but it was one of the stronger worms. And everybody remembers what a worm is, right? It's write once, read many is what we used to call it, but that's not really the term for it. It's more of a worm in this idea that it's worming its way around the internet. Once it gets somewhere, it keeps looking. Now, that virus was really stupid in the sense that it only knew to do one thing. I load myself on, and then I check everything around me to see if anybody else has a port open that's similar to what I just found. And I go there and I move on to the next one. And it was a big problem. I remember, we had somebody come into work at this, we were working at this offsite, and it was like one of those workplaces, one of the first ones where they had the internet, you could rent like a room, and we were all coding there. We had gotten a place off site, but some of the other rooms were used by somebody else, and some auditor came in that had Slammer, and it just put us all to a halt, because we had firewalls up and stuff, but it was just hitting us so hard that we had to shut it down, like so many transactions per second. But it was dumb. Here's my prediction. This year, we're going to see the first AI worm. And an AI worm is going to be a lot smarter because once it installs itself and becomes resident, it isn't just going to go look for the next place that has a port. It's going to look for a million different things. And if it can't get in, it's going to try a few things and it's going to reason its way through. And it's scary to me because I think that's to me, that's a foregone conclusion. And it will be, I'm going to use another old term that only Glenn will remember because John and Ann are way too young to know about any of this, but a virus called I Love You,
That one,
uh,
that one.
which was about, does everybody remember what the I Love You virus was about?
No, but I just remember the name. What did it do?
It was a stripper in Florida named Melissa that the guy wrote it for. Um, and anyways, it was an email that when you clicked it, the email subject line was I love you, which was psychologically brilliant. Because if I get an email from Glenn Servati and the subject line just says I love you, I'm gonna click on that. I love Glenn. I don't want his love to be non-requited. Is that the word I'm looking for? Unrequited. And so it just stormed the world. It was my first day at this new company, my first time outside the Canadian space. And this thing just, and if you clicked it, it would then send that same email to everybody on your list. And it was also trying to attach itself to all the drives you had and delete everything. And so it was a really big deal for a few days, for a month, really. But that thing again was dumb. It just did this one thing. It was easy to defeat. What we got coming, because these models are getting smaller and smaller. And when I say a model, I mean ChatGPT 4.0 is a model. You couldn't fit that model on all the computers that we're running right now and everyone I have in this room. But there are little models now that are still pretty smart, that are tiny, that could fit on a phone, could fit on a computer. And the internet bandwidth has gotten such that it could, I just think we're right on the precipice of something like that. So that's my prediction. Let's go on to John for, that's a good prediction for 2025. Everybody just be excited about that. It's,
A good prediction. We were
I'll
all
call it, I should give it a name. That way when it happens that, they can say, oh, you heard it here first. I'm going to call it the Ralph the AI worm because, Wreck-It Ralph wrecks the internet. That's what I was thinking of. So I'm going with that. And that's a Disney thing just for John. So anyways, go ahead, John.
Load it. So I've been doing a lot of thinking about the future, and you hear about all these sciences that are coming, and I just think about the human beings that are going to be absorbing these sciences, and are our organizations ready? And if they're not, where can they go to learn about this? And the set of sciences that in your strategy you're getting ready to deploy could be very different than somebody else. So you might not find market offerings to help you. And so my prediction is here, you're going to see the larger credit unions create their own learning universities in-house. And they're going to bring in people like a John Best and a Glenn and an Ann, but it's going to become much more formalized. Not our curriculum we think they need. We're going to have to go in and think about what's the gap you need to fill to execute your strategy. Let's start learning now, 6 months ahead of when you're going to be implementing. And we're going to have to take control of our own talent management in a very scientific way to align with strategy with these new sciences, because our folks don't have them. So it's going to really create an advantage for those who have a really great CHARO or chief talent officer. And this is going to be some big time science coming as an accelerator and differentiator. That's my prediction.
So isn't that taking a page out of GE and IBM of the 70s and 60s, where they couldn't get enough folks out of the schools, and so they began to create, and then that kind of translated into partnering like with MIT and and even companies like Pfizer that needed engineering. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the Crayon space has never really done that. I often thought, why don't we have some big presence nearby Stanford and some big presence nearby MIT? When you look around, Bank of America has a big presence right down there. That's not exactly what you're saying, but I get your point. I think that there's wow, that's way outside the box thinking.
Hey, and now that I'm thinking about it, think about Lamont Black just announced that he's going into business, and he's going to be coming to market with offerings to help us think about blockchain and these things, right? Get our IQ up.
Rumor is he hired my son.
That.
So and actually I'm going to be at the Chicago thing coming up.
Nice.
They
Right.
invited me. What for? I think they
it's
just
kind
want
of
me to show up and release Ralph, but whatever.
good.
I'm down. But no, I think that's really brilliant. And I do think that there is, I've often wondered at what point we're going to have to modify our current education program because there's just so much that can be learned elsewhere.
Yeah.
But what do I know? That and
Just
a nickel
to-
will get you some soup.
just to pile on that one just a little bit, I think it's one of those nothing new under the sun, but we can put it in a new form and we can actually power it with AI. I mean, I like that a lot, John. I think that sounds really interesting, and
Well,
let's see how
and
that plays out.
to bring it to a fine point, I'm actually doing that with some of the credit unions we work with right now, which is building up literacy across. So that is filling up that, how do I understand data? How is data analytics? But it is absolutely custom, led by HR training and their whole education.
And
And
again,
that's credit unions.
that's education for their associates, not for their members. Like
Correct.
when you talk about financial education and financial literacy and the credit
But
union,
not financial literacy, thinking about creating a organization that can consume data.
exactly. Gotcha. Okay, interesting.
Right. So yeah, so it's when you said that, I was like, oh my goodness, I can't wait to tell so-and-so, can't reveal it here. But yeah, I was like, well, okay, I don't have anything as cool
Good
as
idea.
something like that, but this one has been just sitting out there for a long time. So I'm going to this is the year I'm going to throw it out. I think that credit unions are going to absolutely lead in co-living mortgages. All right. For so long, I know for so long, the problem has been I've got 3 or 4 people who are unrelated living in a household and want to buy that household, right? Want to buy that house, excuse me. And credit unions have such an amazing opportunity to step in there and do co-living mortgage models.
How does
really-
that work? So
Yeah.
like I got a buddy, he lives with like 3
Yeah.
people in a house. None of them are related. And you're saying like all 3 of them get together and say, hey, we want to
Buy
buy
the
this
house.
place?
Yeah.
Interesting. And so
Yeah.
that mortgage would be, see, and that's curious from a credit union perspective because you got to make all 3 of those people a member, right?
Yep. Bonus.
But some places don't do that. Like one of the things I'll get to is my merger prediction for this year, which I'm sure you guys will be on top of as well. But
But
I
just like
find that like a
think-
lot of members aren't members, they're joints, right?
right, but think about, you're not making it joint. You're saying you're giving
Yeah,
the-
all 3 of these guys are at the same level, or
Fractional.
people, or
it goes back to all the householding challenges that credit unions already have. They're like, how do I define a household? And they've been saying a household has to be 2 people that are somehow correlated. We're like, no,
not
you
in
got-
today's world. Yeah.
Exactly. And we have the housing crunch where, if mortgage rates are still going to stay stinky at around 7, and that is a stinky word, then heck, this is an amazing way to allow people to get, and I don't want to say fractional mortgages because it's not, but it opens the door to get in there. So credit unions, hear me now, do this, lead into co-living mortgage models, please.
One question
I
on
love
that.
this. Yeah, my
Um,
house has an LLC.
Right.
Yeah. Does my dog count? Because she has been freeloading for a lot of years.
If she can
And
have a credit score and that she's
I'm
not,
telling you, she has
can-
0 credit. So she's got to be pretty clean.
Gotta get
I'm
a
just saying.
1099. She needs a 1099.
She does get mail.
exactly. And I'm sure
So
that she's so cute. She's an awesome influencer and can generate some serious bank on YouTube.
that's a
So
good idea.
yeah,
That's a good idea. Probably better than me. So
gotta
co-living,
go
I like
back.
that. What about reverse co-living mortgages? That would be another one that
that's for later. Let's give that about 10
that's
years.
because, well, I'm just saying once you kick a few of the roommates out, which is sort of I mean,
But
would there be a rule like you have to live together for like, because you don't want to give like Sheldon and Leonard, for the Big Bang Theory, a co-living mortgage. Those 2 clearly they're not going to stand the test of time here.
Hey, come on, mate. Well, how many years were they on? They lasted.
Yeah, but they were in and
out.
out of living together. He had the roommate agreement. It was a whole thing. But I know I'm just, because like, how would you get out of it? I guess the others would have to buy you out, or you find another person.
Right,
It's a
would be
lot
like-
of interesting questions.
right, but it
I
doesn't
wanna-
allow us to get in there.
I want to go back to my file and see if I can figure out. It was maybe 4 years ago at Venture Tech. It was one of kind of the early stage companies. They had a guy from North Carolina, I remember. I can't remember the name of the company, who was pitching this exact idea. It blew people's minds, and people could not get their heads around it. And Nick Evans, our friend who runs the Circle Fund, He was like, that's the idea. I know this is kind of bleeding edge stuff, but I want people thinking about it. Well, here we are. Maybe he was a little bit ahead of the game, and I'm going to give him props in our notes if I can figure out who he was, and I'll mention the name. But I think you're right, especially, again, reminder to people that Anne's calling or, joining us from California, where the cost of housing is probably the worst of any place in the country. So it's even more, and I think your rules there, your laws, your legislation, from what I understand, are probably a little bit more amenable to it because it's a necessity.
I
So
think in California, my dog could own part of my house, right?
probably,
That's,
and have they,
I mean, there'd be a Mellaroo, right? We'd have to have a Mellaroo. Only Californians know what a Mellaroo is. But...
Exactly, and it's not a kangaroo. But you're right. We already have ADUs. You can put an additional small house on your already.
Yeah, I was going to ask that question. Like, I got to go get another mortgage, and I'm thinking, who's going to give me a third? I got to make it to 84.
Right.
Like, yeah, who's giving me a 30-year mortgage?
So,
but yeah, no, it's a great point.
Does bring in enfold a lot of those areas, right? Realistically,
curious.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Question will be not can you qualify for the loan, is can you get insurance?
Glenn, what do you got?
I was going to say it was your
first one?
turn, but I'm going more for the here and now, and I'm also trying to kind of lump a couple things together. And you and I talked about this last time, that we really kind of did engineer, again, you and me, we engineered a soft landing. The US economy, by all kind of general traditional measures, had a soft landing. Don't tell the average American, people still think the economy sucked. So, which kind of creates questions about what happens when the economy does really start to take a serious hit, what's going to happen. But my prediction is that the economy is going to basically stay pretty similar to where it is now, but we're already seeing this to some extent. There's going to be a shift in the perception of the population. Some of the people who used to think it sucked is probably going to be pretty happy about it. Some of the people who thought it was just fine are probably going to get less happy about it, which is just kind of silly. But as all that happens and mortgage rates and other interest rates don't drop as fast as maybe people had expected, and inflation doesn't drop quite as fast as people expected, this is not even, I think it's such a certainty that I won't even call it a prediction as much as an over-under. At what point will incoming President Trump start attacking the Fed? There's absolutely no question in my mind.
He just had a press conference a few minutes ago. I think he may have already done that, Glenn, believe it or not. I'm being serious. I think he
so I mean, it's going to be interesting because, as we all know, the president and even the Fed doesn't control all of this stuff, and they certainly can't do it on a dime. I think that the way things are playing out, like I say, I'm not predicting doom by any stretch of the imagination. I'm predicting kind of status quo. And to the extent that people don't think that's good enough, it's going to get interesting.
So Glenn, are you saying that inflation's going to maybe tick a little bit, it'll be slowish, but we're going to still see sticky areas like housing, healthcare?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that you're right. I think it could come down a little bit, but not by a lot. And we know,
or it might go up a little bit.
And that's the piece where, the Fed's already signaled that they're going to have fewer rate cuts this coming year than they originally planned to, because inflation's not going down. There's absolutely no reason to expect housing to get better in the next year. I mean, other than maybe if you had mortgage rates. Well, that's proof, because everybody thought mortgage rates would go down when the Feds did their last rate cuts. It's actually gone up. So go figure.
So, okay. I'm going to make my prediction, and then we're going to do a quick lightning round, and then I'll end on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, which I want to get all of you guys. So, and mine will be part of the lightning round. I'll be quick. We thought we saw mergers last year. We're about to see the most mergers we've ever seen. Banks and credit unions, merger. 2 reasons. One, because it appears to be the time from a consolidation standpoint for the market and for our industry. 2, I believe this administration is going to be more favorable to that, particularly the NCUA. And I think that 3, a lot of folks spent 2024 sort of prepping and creating the rails and the throughput needed to do these sorts of mergers. And it is going to be the method of growth but unfortunately, it's not going to be the answer to breaking that GDP that we've been so trapped in for so long. because it's just really shuffling the tables on, well, that's not a good way to put it, the Titanic, because we're not the Titanic, but it's just squeezing that balloon and it's just, the air is just going elsewhere. It's not really adding more air or changing anything. So that's my quick lightning round prediction. Let's go to John.
And I want to add on to that one real quickly, and I'll count this as my turn because I kind of had the same one.
Okay.
I agree with you. One of my predictions, and I think again, it's almost a foregone conclusion, the Capital One Discover deal, which has been basically on the table now almost for a year, will happen. And I think that when it happens, I don't know, when you're talking about more mergers or you're talking about in sheer number, I think the answer is yes. I'll take it a step further. I don't know that the number will necessarily go up. I think the dollars involved will go up, because I think when Cap One Discover and the more favorable administration view toward mergers happen, we're going to see more in that regional category of the the 10 billion and up, as opposed to the really small ones merging to achieve scale. I think we're going to see, maybe not another to the size of BB&T and SunTrust to create Truist, but maybe just a little bit lower than that. I bet you we're going to see it something along those lines before the end of the year, and maybe two more in the credit union space. Not quite of that size, but in the credit union world of similar magnitude. Sorry for horning in. John Jay.
No, building on that topic, I think the efficiency ratio that folks think they're getting by gathering assets through mergers and acquisitions is not going to get the outcomes they wanted. And one of the drivers are going to be is they underestimated the value of the technical debt that they're buying when you have all these tech stacks that you slam together, and then you have to kind of homogenize them and then create some kind of competitive advantage coming out of there with your tech stack. It's like, that is a quagmire that you just bought into. I hope that there's a fair exchange of value that you got by acquiring that asset and that problem that you just acquired. I think that's underappreciated and not talked about.
I want to piggyback on that, just a quick thing, because I think Anna will touch on this. I find that a big chunk of it is the loss of business in the transition, like card on file transactions, which was, I think, and I've been fighting really hard to figure out how to maintain those in the mergers that we've been doing and been part of as the as big. But I imagine there's a whole lot with data. I couldn't agree more that I worry that it's a lot. They're thinking it's a lost leader, and I'm not 100% sure it is, because it feels a little like indirect to me. Like, there's a lot of work to get these people bought into the new credit union entity. Go ahead, Ann.
I was going to say there's conversion, but there's also, and let me just give a metaphor here. Hey, let's just say you and your best friend, who are about the same size, decide to share a closet. You take all of your clothes, you stick it into one closet. Oh no, stuff has to go. And it might be that thing that you've held onto for 20 years, but you can't give it up. So credit unions are literally looking at that. And you're right, John, they're not thinking about, oh my gosh, which item, which purse, which shoes, which really cute outfit that I haven't worn in 25 years, but I love, has to go.
Are you looking for roommates, Ann? There's a lot of co-living and clothes sharing going on in here.
I might be going through my own thing here as an empty nester.
Your prophecies here that, is your daughter, did she take off?
Yeah, no, she's been gone. So, I'm an empty nester. I'm actually expanding into her space, so maybe that's it.
Oh, yeah.
Your metaphor is interesting too, because I wrote a white paper for CUNA back before they became America's credit unions, and the phrase they were using was spring cleaning, and it was very similar, but it was only dealing with your own portfolio as an ongoing entity. Now you're adding to that, okay, well, if you already needed to do the spring cleaning because you'd accumulated enough stuff yourself, you take two entities, like you say, and cram them in the same closet. That cleaning gets a lot more severe.
Right, exactly.
Marie Kondo time.
Yes, and how do you determine?
Ooh, and Ann could be your Marie Kondo, your credit union Marie Kondo.
Your data and your tech stack, I will make it.
She'll pick out your outfits. She'll make sure the shoes are good.
I will pick out the best tech stack to make you look good. Pivot this conversation, and this, Glenn, this is for you. All right. Payments evolution. I predict real-time payments will grow and begin to take part of that credit card transaction market for the small and mid-sized purchases, because I firmly believe FedNow has thrown enough incentives out there that it might actually start taking hold.
Interesting. I like it. And that's one we can measure. We can go back at the end of the year and see. I mean, their trends are absolutely in the right direction. Now, whether those are additive or whether they're cannibalizing other ones, if we tend to find that what we wind up doing in most cases is creating new transactions, which hey, that's great, more power to it. But if it starts taking away some of the credit cards and debit card and small value, gets even more interesting.
Right.
Hmm.
Right. So we'll see where that one goes. But that was a lot of fun.
Glenn, lightning round for you. No, that was your lightning round you did.
Well,
So I'm
I'll
going to
just,
pick up.
yeah,
Go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Glenn.
I was going to say, I mean, the other one, there's so much noise. We've talked about this before. Credit unions acquiring banks. You've got the Illinois, interchange fee prohibition act. All these things that are like major threats. You've got the banks going after tax, tax advantages for credit unions. All these things with a new administration, they seem to be vulnerable. I think there's going to be tons and tons of noise at the end of the year. Something tells me that none of them are going to really be significantly different than we are today. That doesn't mean we can ignore them. I think we're going to have to really fight to keep the status quo, but I think we can.
Oh, I agree. And it cuts to, I have two honorable mentions that I think one of us was going to bring up before I get into crypto, which is open finance
Yes.
and sustainable finance. I think both of those have something, there's a future there in 2025 that has been sort of boiling, but those are honorable mentions. Okay, here's the crypto thing. I know this is what everybody's waiting for. So
let me go back. Let me just remind people, because we hadn't done this. I got the notes up from last year, and we'll post
Okay.
for last year. Just to remind people, Ann and I were the low points in terms of where we thought. Again, as a reminder, we recorded this last year in January. Bitcoin was trading at 44,000. And it had already made a run of about 50% from where it was just the prior September. And it continued to shoot up. Ann and I actually thought it was going to moderate. We thought it was going to be sitting in the 30, 35 range. John Janklius thought it would finish up at about 50. John actually got much more detailed, and he's the winner, no question about it. He predicted it would be basically stable until November, and then it would take a fork in the road depending on how the election went. Now, that wasn't true because it actually did start going up beforehand. But he thought that if Biden won the election, at the time it was Biden, 60 to 65K. If Trump won, it would be 80 to 85K. Well, guess what? We broke 100. So, JB.
And I remember saying I wanted to say 100, but I was afraid to say it, and because it just felt crazy. But I'm gonna go with I'm gonna embrace my crazy.
No
So here you
risky,
go.
no biscuit. Go ahead.
One of the reasons that I did that split was because I had been looking into what the crypto community had been doing, and the crypto community finally, and we discussed this at length in a previous podcast that Glenn and I did, where we talked about FTX, we talked about Sam Bankman-Fried, whatever the hell his name is. We talked about the guy who ran Binance, and I believe I told him we are shaking, the Napster phase is coming to a close as we shake out these imposters and people who are not really doing what the crypto community was doing. After that happened, and it didn't completely destroy the crypto community, which I knew it wouldn't, I knew that I felt like that they were going to go after the more likely target to be willing to take this on, which turned out to be Trump. And I had a feeling he was going to lean that way because he tends to like to hawk stuff. They finally organized his community and decided to really go after and to exert themselves politically. And with Sam Bankman-Fried, whatever his name is, out of the picture, because he was really pumping a lot of money into one side of it, they settled on really looking at the Republican side as being their flag bearer for this. And then we now have by far the most favorable crypto administration to crypto that we've ever had. And one example of that is HBAR, which, as you guys know, that's Hedera. I had a little bit of a hand in helping set that up. I'm proud of that. Also, Sea Ledger, which now is part of Metallicus, or the band Metallica. I think they joined it. I can see Ainsworth singing some Metallica, that kind of thing. But anyways, John Ainsworth, for those of you that don't know, and John, if you're listening, what's up? Anyways, so the point is that with this favorable outlook, I feel like here's what's going to happen. One, people are going to finally understand Bitcoin for what it is, which is a security. It's just a rare security. And don't forget, we're still running out of Bitcoin rapidly. There's only so much. It was always set up to be a limited thing, and it started in 2009. So what I saw was Ethereum went up. And the reason I was interested in things like H bar jumped from 4 cents to almost 50, which was beautiful. Now, what this means to me is that the promise of blockchain and cryptocurrency was never supposed to be about uh, security and currency, although Bitcoin was kind of its beginning mode. Where the real value is loan NFT. I had said for a long time that there is no better solution to share liquidity between credit unions to enable lending and build out a model where there could be a network like that. And again, I was ahead of my headlights, like I always am, but it looks like they're finally understanding. And I think in order for that to happen, the noise of cryptocurrency, the pump and dump, the cybercrime, the ransomware, all that it's not going to go away, but it had to be sort of understood, categorized, and separated so people understood what that was and didn't lump these other things into it. So now you've got Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. I can never say that, these people's names. We'll just call him Vivek. Vivek really, working with Doge. Mark Cuban, we talked about this. Not a fan of either of those guys, but Mark has been accepting Dogecoin at his stadium for a long time. So here's my prediction with a favorable. First of all, you got to look at the administration. So Trump released World Liberty Financial. You guys remember this?
Yep.
And so World Liberty Financial has a coin. It's WLFI. If I know, I'm not trying to be political at all. I'm just saying what my observation with Trump is, he tends to like to promote things that he owns. And he's got a stake in this, just like he had a stake in whatever that Truth Central or whatever that was. So I think with this favorability, what I'm hoping we'll see and what I think we'll see is, I honestly think Bitcoin is going to end the year in a dramatic and big way because of what Glenn said. Glenn pointed out that we were going to stay status quo, but we were building to a crescendo. And I believe him. I think he's right. What that crescendo is something has to give in the rates. And whether it's Trump taking control of the Fed and saying, hey, I'm going to just tell you this is what the rate's going to be. I'll never forget one time I was hanging around with Ed Callahan. Those of you are old enough to remember this guy. And he had a newspaper and he was sitting at the bar and he was going through everything. And he writing down notes and he hands it off to somebody and they run up. And he goes, I bet you thought there was something scientific to that. And I said, well, what were you doing? He goes, I was setting the rates. And what he was doing was just looking at other financial institutions' rates and determining that. So there's a cascading effect that I still believe happens based on that. Did you know that's how gas stations figure things out? My mother-in-law used to run a gas station. She used to have to go drive around and look at other gas stations' prices in the area, and that's how they determine their price. So if that's the case, and this ecosystem is that hyper-connected, I believe that rates are going to be key. And when that happens, there'll be a fall off in property. And where are people going to push their money to? I think you're going to see a bigger play in Bitcoin. That said, I also think we'll see the rise of some of the very first really usable blockchain networks that aren't necessarily cryptocurrency based, but token based solutions that you could sort of invest in, because by staking them or being involved in them, you're participating in their structure and you're allowing them to succeed. So I'm going to say Bitcoin, and Glenn's going to hold me to this, but I'm going to say Bitcoin's going to end the year at $165,000.
That's not even as crazy as I thought it was going to be.
And Ethereum, people can use AI to understand it. And by the way, AI has a prominent role, or blockchain has a prominent role to play in AI. What is blockchain really good at? Blockchain is really good at being a immutable source of truth. That's its purpose. It is a ledger that cannot be changed, but it doesn't have to be a ledger about money. It can be a ledger of facts. It can be a ledger of assets. It can be a ledger of a lot of things. And what does AI need in order to be successful? It needs a source of truth. Otherwise, it spouts hallucinations and other things. So having something, a trusted, I'm going to call it the fact chain, and you can write that down. John said it here first. A fact chain or something along those lines where data goes to be sort of immutable. We're seeing it right now, and not to be political, but we're watching the events of January 6th possibly get rewritten. They always say that history is told by the winners, right? And in this case, what we all saw on the screen and what we're being told can be very different. And what's the world going to believe, especially if we don't have that video, or people say that AI made it, or we begin to do that. So there needs to be something that is an arbiter of fact. And I believe we're headed towards that with blockchain.
So 165, did you come up with something?
Oh, and Ethereum, I'm going to call it at $7,000.
And that's compared to what today?
$3,389.99 right at the
That'll
moment.
go up.
And
That'll go up even more than.
I think it doubles. I think there's a coin out there to be made that is going to do well. It might be WFLI. I believe that's built on Ethereum. I have to take a look, but it might be his World Liberty Foundation or whatever. But and I'm not knocking it, because it's a well-written coin, and so it can be used. It has the ability. And where it comes down to is finally, after all these years using the smart contracts and other things that are so valuable, the ability for it to house assets the way it does, the ability for it to have an immutable capability that also crosses borders and can cross, and it's the perfect solution for the credit union industry. It is the solution they need, we need to survive. And I, for one, I'm here to support what John Jankley has said, that Nimbus will be 100% blockchain by February of 2025. And I'm proud of him saying that. I support him.
Way to put it
Good
out
job,
there.
John.
Yeah.
You can write this. And the John Jankley coin, you count me in. I'm going to have a lot of those.
Well, I tell you
So-
what, John, I agree with you that there are tailwinds behind blockchain, tailwinds behind Bitcoin. I'm going to make it a bet that it's 195. I think it's going to go.
Oh, that
even
is going to
further.
up be one. Oh,
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm going to go on the
John,
other
it's not-
side of optimism.
I think
John,
Glenn's
it's
going to
not
do
high.
$1. Glenn's going to do $1.
This is a first. John is not our high. And you want
I know I'm usually a little more conservative, but I just see, yeah, I see those. Anyways, yeah, Ann, what do you got?
Okay, so I see all of your optimism. I see all of your opportunity, and I'm going to grab it and say, what about those not so happy agents who are out there? I say this year that Bitcoin is going to surge. All right. Then there's going to be a massive AI generated wallet thievery with possible quantum computing behind it, because that is very feasible, which is going to implode the entire structure. So I'm going to say it ends at 40.
Wow.
So I have that same prediction, but it's for 2026.
Okay. I just
So-
want to put that. I'm just a year ahead of you.
Remember I
And
said
it's
I thought it was going to crescendo. You're a year ahead. I think that's the year after this.
Okay. So that's my window.
Okay.
And I'm Mr. Moderate as usual. I'm going to, and again, I feel like, what's the definition of insanity? Kind of, seeing something go wrong and then continue to kind of do the same thing, expecting a different answer.
That's also the definition of government.
Good point.
Just
Not
so
to
you
get
know.
political, as you said a couple times.
Yeah.
I think I agree a lot with most of what you said, John. I think particularly with regard to the notion of smart contracts, a stronger, legislative underpinning for that, blockchain. I think stable coins are going to make a big play for a lot of the reasons that we're talking about here. When it comes to Bitcoin itself, and again, I don't see this as a negative. I say 85. And given how quickly it went, past 100, I don't see that as a bad thing. And I think that would be one of the more stable years we've had in some time. And I think stability is a good thing, because if we're going to do this in the long run, it's not purely a get rich quick scheme. It's actually a quote unquote store of value, not a store of exceedingly, optimistic
Speculation.
returns. So 85 for me.
Okay. What was your Ethereum prediction? Do you have one?
I don't, but I agree with your logic that it would be better than Bitcoin. I'm not going to say doubling like you do, but I would probably put it up by a good 20-25%.
Okay. And then, so you're saying that you believe this year is the year of the CDBC, and you
Not
want
the-
everyone
no,
to know
let's
that
be-
you're 100% in on the CDBC.
Let's be clear. I personally still think there's a role for CBDCs. Hey, they ain't going.
And by
Hey,
CDB, we don't mean the, extract of THC.
But
Although I know you use that a lot and I'm proud of you. I think it's helped you a lot. Your skin looks so much better. But I'm
No, I-
saying CDBC as in the stable coin that was pitched by the government.
not, and again, there's a lot of stable coins that are not government backed. Those are the ones I'm talking about, like JP Morgan
Like
Chase.
Tether and
Exactly. Things that don't
Okay.
vary, their point of existence is not to appreciate.
And you know what? You make a good point because it's a brilliant prediction. I didn't think of it, but the way you get between these cryptos when you're, purchasing them and selling them is with a stable coin. So, but one thing about that, Glenn, part of the reason that was there is because there were so many different markets. I think Coinbase has won in the United States for the most part. I really do. I feel like they're sort of the Amazon of crypto for Americans.
I would
in my
tend to
opinion.
agree. I mean, it may be a little early to totally declare game over, but they certainly have a good solid lead and they're kind of in the home stretch.
Well, this has been predictions in 2025 with John, Ann, and John and Glenn. And for those of you that believe, join us. You can send your money directly to Glenn at Glenn Industries at glenn.com. And no, honestly, I can't thank you guys enough for joining us. And what insightful stuff. I love the education aspect of it. I never had thought about, getting 3 friends and getting a mortgage, but now I'm kind of into it. So Ann, let me know. John, if you guys are in, I'd take Glenn, but I feel like he's going to be a dissident. He's probably going to bring his dog too. I don't know if it'll go along with mine.
Closet. That's all I'm saying. I just need the
Yeah,
biggest.
and just you could go through Glenn's closet, but no, seriously, these are great episodes. They're really important for everyone, and I hope. And by the way, we'd love to hear your feedback. So if you're sitting out there and you just vehemently disagree with any of us, God, please let us know because this is just us rambling on. We certainly aren't any kind of we don't have any visions or prophecies of this. We're just sharing what we see, and I think it's a lot of really good, unique perspectives.
And we like
But,
the conversation. And maybe probably the best
Yeah.
way to do it to kind of keep a dialogue going is
I would love to have a dialogue. I just can't thank you guys enough. And for those of you who would like to find these folks and chat with them, John, where can they find you? Just the Nimbus website?
Yeah, Nimbus website. You'll find me there.
All right. And that's nimbus.com. We'll have that in the show notes. And other than in your closet sorting clothes, where can they find you?
No, I'm actually like, I'm making it all better and I'm adjusting your tech stack. That's what I'm
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah,
your
you're not
tech
hiding
stack.
in my closet. Gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha.
However, where you can find me, of course, the best way to reach me is Ann at AnnLikeThrive.com or just hit AnnLikeThrive.com. We got lots of good stuff about how to clean up your tech stack.
Love it. Love it. And that's a good point. The tech stack is technical debt, which both of you mentioned, which I don't know. For me, it's such a foregone conclusion. It's like my everyday. I just feel like I'm constantly sort of dealing with that. So it's almost like water to me and I'm a fish. It's just what I live in. Glenn, what do you got?
Yeah, Glenn.Sarvati at 154advisors.com. But if you want to keep the conversation going, the best way to do it is Best Innovation Group's LinkedIn page always winds up posting this. That's probably the best place to layer on a conversation. So we'll post that link into the show notes as well.
And just as an announcement, by February, I hope you guys will participate. I'm planning on a credit union Blue Sky network. So
Wonderful.
for those of you that don't know, that's the replacement for not a replacement, but it's a competitor of Twitter, but it's open source and there's a lot of really good about it. So I'm planning on building something this year, and Glenn and I will be releasing that and working hard on that. There'll be a lot of good notes.
Right on.
I have an incredible conversation I'm going to have with Glenn about the guys that made Pokemon Go and what they're doing, because it's some very evil stuff. I'll just leave it at that. And you can find me
Look
at
forward to it.
big-fintech.com or LinkedIn, or throw a rock and you'll find me. I'm around. Anyways, thanks everyone. And I hope you have a wonderful 2025. And thanks to my friends here who joined me. Thank you guys so much.
Enjoyed it.
Check back each week for the latest from the Big Cast. Or better yet, we hope you'll consider subscribing for free via Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you have questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. Tweet us at Big Fintech, email info@big-fintech.com, or visit us at big-fintech.com and click on the Media tab, where you can post a comment or check out our archive of hundreds of past episodes. See you next week.